There we go. Okay, hi everybody. We are on our fourth installment of the Family Child Care Rules Advisory Committee, i.e. the RAC. And this is your last session. And let's go ahead and I wanted to make sure that everybody was able to access the raise hand button. So those of you who are on, can you please do that? Find that raise hand button and raise your hand just so that I make sure I'm not going to miss any of you. Okay, Delk staff, you don't need to because you don't get to ask questions. Okay, that's great. Okay, great, everybody. Thank you for demonstrating that. Now I can go through with confidence. So let's go ahead and let you know who is here from the Delk team. I will start off. My name is Ronnie Pham. I'm a child care quality specialist, and I'll be your facilitator for tonight. And we have Abby.
Hi, everyone. Good evening, and thanks again for joining us for week 4. My name is Abby Strom, and I am with the DELC, specifically the CCLD policy team, and I'll pass it to Carrie.
Hi, everyone. I'm Carrie Hudspeth, and I'm the Salem Regional Manager. Nice to see everybody tonight. And I'll pass it on to Allison.
Hey, everyone. I'm here by phone tonight. My name is Allison Delory, Child Care Labor Liaison, and I am just here to take notes. So thanks for being here after your long days.
I love the way she says just here to take notes. She is awesome at taking notes, and that actually helps us to fill in some of the agenda with the changes and as well as everything else that she does. Thank you so much, Allison, for that. Okay, Carrie, Carrie's going to be sending us up a message reaction when we have 30 seconds left for the topic. So Carrie, what is your reaction going to look like that we need to look for? Oh, you see that? Celebration. So that means that none of you can use the celebration because that's going to be Carrie's for tonight. But I'm sure you'll still have the option of raising hands. And okay, so let's look at this. So for tonight's agenda, we are going to we're going to review the group norms that you have developed before. We're going to look at the responses and the feedback that you had given us last week and the actions that have taken place from that. We're going to look at the rule text for the RF and CF, and you were sent an email that showed you the grid that we're going to be dealing with for that, the topics that we're going to be covering. We have a total of 40 minutes for the review. And we'll take a break at about 7 o'clock. I set my alarm for that. And we will continue with the rest of the rule review for 45 minutes. And then we'll have some closing comments where Abby's going to need to talk to you about the reimbursement process. So you definitely want to make sure that you're here for that. Okay, and let's see. Okay, so moving on, we're going to talk about, just review those group norms that you had previously agreed to. We're going to allow opportunities for all voices to be heard. So you want to take space and make sure that everybody gets a chance to offer their opinions and thoughts on this, which is the whole reason for the RAC. We need diverse voices. We want to remain focused on the scope of the RAC to try to keep it to the subject and the rule sections that we're talking about. Be open for respectful discussion. So have an open mind and ask clarifying questions when you don't understand something or when you want more clarity on it. Please make sure you do that. We want to encourage and honor individual perspectives and truth. All experiences are valuable and contribute to our shared understanding of what happens in your childcare settings. We want you to use the raised hand functions, and thank you for showing me that you did know where that was. And definitely use the chat for comments too. I think that that's also easy on Allison when she can scoop them in to the notes. Practice active listening, listen to understand and give time to reflect before responding. And seek commonality. We may disagree, which is totally okay, and we'll be guided by our shared commitment to this work. Okay. So we also wanted to remind you that we, in the RAC, we need your help to identify fiscal impacts. These are going to be resources that you need perhaps to purchase something to implement that changed rules. We have highlighted those that we saw for sure to call to your attention when we come upon a fiscal impact, but you might see something that we miss. So hopefully you'll be able to call that out for us. Equity impacts. These are sometimes unintended consequences that may impact different groups or different communities in different ways that we might not be thinking about. So we have also highlighted some that we saw as equity impacts, but you might see some that we didn't catch. So we're hoping that you can help us with that too. We also want to know if the rule is unclear, if the language isn't right, and you've been doing that for the last 3 sessions and been doing a really good job of that. We really appreciate that. Any unintended consequences as a result of the rule change. So it may not be a fiscal impact or an equity impact. It's just an unintended consequence, like, oh my gosh, now we'll have to do this as a result of that. We want to know about it, so please make sure you help us to learn that. Any additional resources that may be needed to support the implementation of the rules. So sometimes this is a guidance document. Sometimes it's a form that you might need, or as you're thinking about it, please let us know about that. We have some very talented staff in Delk that are more than happy to do that. So we just want to learn from you. Okay, anything else before we move on? Did I miss anything? Okay, we're going to go through. And we have some more friends that have joined. And for those of you who are just joining, we needed to start at 6 because we have a very full agenda to get finished with our last RAC topic. So thank you for coming in. Okay, so we want to talk to you about the feedback from the previous meetings. So let's look at this first one here, restrictive infant care, including but not limited to bouncers, exercisers, swings, infant seats, high and low back chairs, or structured infant carriers may be used for no more than 30 minutes in any 2-hour period. One of the things we heard from you was that you suggested to developing a rule guidance document that shows that the difference between the restrictive infant equipment can be used on a limited basis versus infant equipment that is prohibited, like the infant walker. And CCLD said that was a great suggestion. We'll make a rule guidance document with visuals showing the difference. So thank you for catching that for us. There was also something on feeding infants and toddlers that was in both RF and CF. The rules pertaining to feeding infants and toddlers, this was your feedback. The rules pertaining to feeding infants and toddlers should be the same for both registered and family child care, dealing with the health and safety of the children. I remember, I think one of the specific comments was an infant's an infant no matter where they're at. So we heard you, and that change will be made. The section of the rules pertaining to feeding infants and toddlers will be the same for both RF and CF. So we wanted you to know about that change. We have more coming. Thank you for helping us put your responses in action. The infant formula, this rule said infant formula cannot be combined in a bottle with cereal, fruit juice, or other foods without a medical practitioner's written permission. Your feedback was, can this be written more clearly? So the wording of the rule will be altered to read here as follows. When bottle feeding, bottles may only contain formula or human milk and may not be combined with cereal, fruit juice, or other foods without a medical practitioner's permission. The next section was on diaper changing and toileting. And a provider must change wet or soiled diapers promptly. Diapers must be changed when a child exhibits behavior that suggests a wet or soiled diaper. The feedback from this group was that you suggested adding a minimum time required to check diapers. Some children may not give visual, auditory cues. Oh, I was also thinking about smelling cues. They may not exhibit that as well. So a minimum time requirement will be added. A provider must change wet or soiled diapers without promptly checking children's diapers at a minimum of every 2 hours or more frequently to meet the individual's child's needs. Diapers must be changed when a child exhibits behavior that suggests a wet or soiled diaper. Did I see a hand come up? Did I?
Yes, Ronnie. Annalise, yes.
Yeah, that's me. So this just actually came up from a childcare provider who owns a center and a family childcare. This week, it came up yesterday. And I would like us, I know you just rewrote the rule. I would like to caution Delk on creating a rule that says that diapers need to be checked at a minimum of 2 hours. You know, sometimes very young babies will sleep for more than 2 hours, or if, you know, kids come in and they're really tired or whatever's going on, right? There is a rule that says, you know, children under 2 or, you know, infants, right? We allow them to form their own patterns of sleep and awake. We meet, and then, you know, no matter what age the child is, we you know, we do child-led care, right? We put the needs of each child first. So here's the situation. There needs to be something in that rule that says a child who is awake.
Oh.
Because what this rule is going to do, and what was recently enforced by Delk, is if you've got a sleeping child and they haven't been checked and changed in 2 hours, you have to wake that child up and change that diaper. And if I was a parent and my child was wearing a diaper, because come on, we know, you know, most diapers today are pretty absorbent. If you woke up my sleeping 10-month-old baby to change that diaper for a wet diaper, I would be very upset and I would pull that child from the daycare, because my child's needs were not being met in that moment.
Great idea for word change. Agreed. Oh, that's Abby supposed to be reading those.
Oh, Ronnie, I don't mind sharing. Yes, but there are some comments in the chat. Sarah says we could add during awake periods. And yes, Mindy says that she agrees and thinks it's a good idea for a change. So we will note that.
Thank you. And we definitely have that in the minutes. Allison is on the job. Okay, thank you. Are we okay to go forward? Okay, thank you. Okay. It didn't move. Okay, so on behavior and guidance, a provider must ensure that only caregivers or educational coaches shall provide guidance to a child. Your feedback was, how are educational coaches defined? Not everybody will know what this means. So the response is, the rule will now be altered to read, a provider must ensure that only caregivers or specialists providing support, coaching, or modeling shall provide guidance to a child. We also had something in prohibited discipline and actions. Using unauthorized prescription or non-prescription drugs or chemicals for discipline or to control behavior. Your feedback was the way this is written, the intent is not clear. Suggest saying using prescription or non-prescription. So the wording in the rule will not be changed since it aligns with all other rule sets. We have noted this for future rule revision for all license types at the same time. So we have also in discipline and actions, confining or isolating a child in an enclosed or darkened area, a locked or closed room, bathroom, closet, or box for punishment. And your feedback was sometimes sensory areas are dark for children who are overstimulated. This could be viewed as a form of punishment or discipline. So the wording in this rule will not be changed. This rule is pertaining to prohibited discipline. If a child has a specific need, that will be addressed in the required written care plan outlined in the rules section 1050. Okay. And I think we have one more. Oh,
Just really quick, remind me, is the new rule set going to, because I'm coming off of a very long and busy day, is the new rule set going to define the difference between discipline and punishment?
We do not have, there currently is not a definition of discipline or punishment in rule.
Because I think that's something that often comes up, right? For licensing specialists, for special investigators. I think that's probably something very needed. You might consider that. And I think it would be a natural outgrowth of what we're trying to do here with this new rule set.
thank you, Annalise. I know Allison got that noted in the notes. Okay. Let's see, we have one more section, I think. Okay. A provider, this was in the home structure and safety section. A provider must maintain the indoor temperature no lower than 68 degrees and no higher than 85 when children are present. If the provider is unable to maintain an internal temperature between 68 and 85, a provider must utilize strategies to help children stay warm or cool. Your feedback was must isn't the correct word since it creates conflict within the two parts of the rule. And CCLD said, great call out. The wording will be altered to read, when the indoor temperatures are lower than 68 degrees or higher than 85 degrees, a provider must utilize strategies to help children stay warm or cool. So that seemed to fix that. And then in the section of water supply and plumbing, there was a rule around well testing requirements, or was that a question around well testing requirements? Are there additional, your feedback was, are there additional testing requirements for spring water like private wells? And additional research is getting conducted with OHA drinking water services at this time. So which means that Delk is on it. Okay. Oh, that was it. So we are going to, let me escape this. So we are going to be looking at the rules now. And I think I might have staged this almost. So this here is 53. In the CF and the RF, we have this on page 47. Thank you for letting me talk to myself. It did help. There we go. Okay. Okay, are you ready? So we're going to dig in, and it's been a long day for all of you. And I know this part requires a lot of concentration, but you have been really providing good feedback for this. I did want to let you know that this section that we're going to look at on replacing the prevention and management of hazards for certified family and for RF is the same for both rule sets. So to help save time, we're going to stay with the CF component because it's the exact same for the RF. Okay. So this section is new, but it covers many of the rules that were previously listed in different sections of the rules. So some of the requirements that are listed were taken from CCL rule guidance and technical assistance documents that CCLD had provided before. So I'm going to go ahead and scroll and let you look at this. Just move the page up a little bit. Let me see what this note says. This is the same as the current rule. It differs. It does differ from the current rule. That doesn't make sense.
No, I'll help with this one. This the storage of firearms, BB guns, pellet guns, and arrows is slightly different in RF than CF. This is one the different, and the rules as they are written in these drafts are for storage are the same as they were previously. There's just a slight difference between CF and RF, and that difference is in CF rule the firearms and such must be stored in an area not used by childcare children, and in RF that is not included in, and that is how it is currently written in RF. So there is one little difference in there. Flor has her hand up.
And with that difference, I will suggest that it should be the same for both RF and CF, please.
Thank you, Flor.
Okay, let me let you see all of this so I can explain this. For programs that are licensed prior to July 1st, 2025, the rule lists options for making a pond inaccessible. And much of this information was incorporated from an existing rule guidance document. Annalise?
You know what, I'll take my hand in. I'm gonna put that in the chat. It's okay. I just was bouncing off of Floor's idea that they should be the same, and I was just gonna say, yeah, they should be the same as in the RF. So I'm just gonna put that in the chat.
Thank you.
Flor, you have your hand up still. I'm not sure if that's for a new comment or a.
Is it a new hand or an old
Nope.
hand? It's an old one. Okay. So, and here's the last portion of that. Okay. So, any questions about this section before we move on? Okay.
No.
Annalise, thank you for using the chat for that too. Okay, So next, we're going to look at the maintenance and sanitation here, and I'll let you go through. We have a new ruler, new section here. The rest of this, and remember, if it's not highlighted or colored, it's the same as it's in your rule book now, except for these that have some sort of coloring on it.
Sarah has her hand up, so.
Yes. It's a lot to push all the buttons. On 3A, garbage and waste must be removed from the premise at least once a week. My suggestion would be to add that all garbage and waste must be removed from the premise at least once a week. And so that it ensures that everything from that week is removed instead of just one bin.
Thank you. I'm going to scroll to let you see the rest of the page.
Kristen has her hand up as well.
Are these going to be the same for RF as they are for CF, or are we switching to RF next?
We will be going to RF next.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Thank you for asking that. So this section here, the word biocontaminants will be changed to bodily fluids. That was the change there. Okay, and we're going to go to RF, and we're going to scroll to the next section. I should have put in the number for you. Okay, maintenance and section, the maintenance and sanitation rules. Again, the word biocontaminants. And I guess there too, huh, Abby? This bio, like here.
Yes, yes. Biocontaminants, yes, will be replaced with bodily fluids.
Okay, Kristen, did you see what you were wondering about?
I did, and the CF, it was about the garbage cans, and with RF, it's kind of hard to hide our in-home garbage cans away from children. So, but I don't see it in the RF, so that was good. Thank you.
Okay, we're gonna go to fire protection next.
I do need to read the chat. And this is in reference to the gun storage. And just a comment, Annalise says that these are homes. If guns and weapons are in a safe or locked in a cabinet, properly stored in some way, it shouldn't matter if an infant is sleeping in the room or in a pack and play. This is very specific circumstances. I think that we need to look at the totality of the circumstances and give providers the benefit of the doubt and their licensing specialists to make sure that children are safe, but not exclude the use of one room simply because the weapon is in properly locked and secured device for that purpose. The intent of, and then this is separate for cleaning, it says the intent, of course, on cleaning up the bodily fluids would be immediately after care is given to the child, right? Yes, so meeting the child or taking care of the child's individual needs, and then also cleaning up afterwards. There's actually specific instructions too for, oh, it's right below it, sorry, that yes.
Give me 1 minute. I accidentally closed the CF, which was very silly. I think I got it. It still wants to be on 2 different pages. Hold on. I'm almost there. I don't know why I clicked on it. Okay. There we go. Okay, I'm back together again. Thank you. Except for I have to go back to that section.
And you're on RF, Ronnie. I don't know if you wanted to be on CF.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
So we did the CF there and we finished the RF just now. Okay, so now we're going to be on.
You're right there. It's perfect.
Page 60. Okay, but we just finished that. Were there any other comments for that section?
Just that and Annalise suggests that we add the language about cleaning up the bodily fluids after giving care to the child, so
Okay.
that it's clear.
Okay, thank you. Thank you guys for, still using your brains at this time for this very detailed work. I really appreciate it. I can't even run the PowerPoint and that doesn't take mine. So I appreciate it. Okay, we're looking at fire protection now. And again, remember these sections without the color are the same as you have been experiencing and living with now. And this is in the CF. There are some differences in the RF and we'll look at that. Let's see, the only difference between CF and RF rule language is there is not a new requirement in CF rules. So CF rules are the same as they have always been. So what I'd like to do is scoot over to the RF to see what's new and different there. How does that sound? So here's the RF on the fire protection rules. Let's see if there's. Abby, I didn't see any color. So is
There might not be anything new. Sarah has a question though. I'll double check while Sarah asks her question.
Is there a square footage requirement for how many smoke alarms and carbon monoxide detectors need to be on one single floor? If that made sense.
No, we don't have the requirement for smoke detectors or carbon monoxide detectors connected to square footage, just floors of the home.
Thank you, Sarah.
Are you recommending that, Sarah? Do you have resources to share with us?
It's just a question that I've gotten a lot from educators in the community, curious if one is good or if they need like one per 1,000 square feet or something like that. So maybe I don't know I don't know how you could clarify it more, but yeah, that's what I got.
Thank you. Abby, do you have anything in the chat before we move on to the next section? Oh, we have a hand raised by Angie.
Hi, so on the smoke detectors and carbon monoxide, we do one in each room that the children would have access to. So that we can always monitor our carbon monoxide a little bit better. So we don't really, our square footage is not our concern. It's rooms that the children have access or utilize. And maybe that's a way to word it so that we feel like we're protecting the kids better than trying to worry about our square footage.
Thank you.
And the way, at least in certified family, and I believe they're the same, is that they're installed on each floor of the home and in any area where children nap. And then if installed outside of a room used for napping, it must be located within 6 feet of the room. So, and then Fernanda has her hand up.
Yeah, I just wanted to say that when I got my inspection, the only requirement for the detector was that it was close where the kids were napping. So I think if that's that needs to be very clear over there in the rules.
Thank you. Abby? Abby, are we ready to move to the next section?
Yes.
Okay. So this section is going to be furniture, equipment, and play materials, and we are looking at the certified family now. There will be some differences in the RF, and we'll see that in a moment. Again, let's see, here's a fiscal impact. Each cot or mat used for napping must, and I'll let you read that. And the note here says that the 1 inch thick is the new part of the rule.
And Angie has her hand up.
Angie, is that a new hand or an old hand?
Sorry, it isn't. It's a new hand.
Okay.
I'm looking at the rule about the sleeping mats, and I work with my kiddos are a little bit like the rest. They're special needs kids, and not every one of my special needs kids wants or uses a mat. While I understand it's in the rules, I think that we need to be able to have some provisions for children who have special needs that we might not have to necessarily use a cot. Because I have some that the cot's there and they will not use it. It is an absolute, they can't, it makes too much noise, or they don't like the feel of the washable, it's, so I don't want to be out of, compliance, but I also need to put the child first.
Okay, thank you for that. Annalise?
I was putting a comment in the chat, but I'll back up what Angie just said. So I think, having done childcare in other states, there are more options than beds, mats, or cots. And I think that those are great examples of what a childcare provider might use. But I think, an extra thick sleeping bag or other, there are other options, right? That we might need to consider there.
Okay, thank you. That's in the notes we have. Okay. Let me have you look at the rest of this section, and then we'll have Abby read through the notes. This yellow is a new section, and this number 7 is an equity conversation. Okay, I'll go through the RF now, and we'll look at that same section. Furniture and play equipment. The cot is here for RF. It just doesn't mention the 1 inch. Okay, Abby, do you have any comments you want to read before we go through?
Yes. Annalise says that mats with tape over a tear should be allowed as long as the integrity of the mat is fine. There is a cover over the mat, so the tape shouldn't be a problem. We can't expect providers to be going out and buying a new mat each time. And if there is a small tear, there can be tape or that the tear. And if I'm sorry. And if it is a small tear, there needs to be tape or the tear will get bigger. It's not economically feasible for any childcare program, family childcare or otherwise to replace a cot or mat for a small tear if the integrity is otherwise intact. And Mindy says she agrees.
That's great.
And then Kristen too.
So according to this rule, washable mat mats would not be, I would be out of compliance for using washable mat mats because mine are like sleeping bag mat mats. They're not, so you wouldn't be able to cover them with a durable, washable, waterproof, form-fitting material because they are in their own selves just a washable mat mat. So I guess my question is that would exclude using anything like that with this rule edition, correct?
So are you, Kristen, without knowing are you
Okay.
speaking to exactly what product you use?
I'm just saying, I don't use a cot. My kids don't
Okay.
use cots because they won't stay on them. And we don't use plastic mats. We have washable. They're like almost like sleeping bag material. You know, they've got the blanket sewn in them and they're washable. But that's what we use. And so under this new rule, none of that would be using washable mat mats that was like we use would not qualify under this new rule here. So that's what I'm just asking.
Yeah, we're gonna have to take that question back. To the group. There might be something missing from this because I think the intent was that in registered family in particular, you did not have to have a cot or a mat.
Right.
But if you did have a cot or a mat, it would have to be covered in a durable, washable surface. So
right. So I think there's some wording that needs to be changed here.
I think you're right. And we'll have to go back to take that back to the group. So thank you for pointing that out.
Thank you.
So it might be number 5 that needs additions.
Yep.
Okay.
And Annalise's suggestion is must be in good repair or something like that. I think in terms of it as a replacement for maybe tears and addressing the integrity of the mat versus tears and rips and tape.
Okay, we're going to go on to outdoor spaces. Thank you so much for staying engaged, everybody. Outdoor play area. So
I'm sorry, Ronnie, can you go back for just a second? I just want to capture that rule that's in turquoise, please, because I have some comments about that.
Okay.
I just want to be able to address that, and we're just going a little fast. I apologize.
No, it's okay. Thank you for letting me know. The one in the one with that addressed equity concerns.
Yes, thank you. I'm not gonna bore you with details, but yeah, I have some feedback that I want to give on that, so.
Okay, are you sure?
Oh, yeah, I'll put it in the chat. Yeah,
Okay.
send it to Dilk later. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. And then, oh yeah, make sure you put it in the chat, and Allison can just scoop that up in the notes. Would be helpful. Okay. Annalise, were you able to grab that? Okay. So we're going to go to outdoor areas. Okay, so we had some new rules here. The written plan replaces having to complete an exception to a rule to use a public park instead of a provider's yard for outdoor play. So that was the change here. And CCLD will create a template for use for this requirement so that you won't have to submit the exception. Okay. I believe the rest of this may be same. Give me a minute. Okay, here's some new parts. Number 5 is rules now reflect the CPS guidelines for outdoor home playground safety handbook. Current rules only reference this guidance, and that has led to inconsistencies that some of you have experienced. Sarah? Oh, sorry.
Yes, number 6, the yellow section at the bottom.
Yes.
I personally was confused by the phrasing of maintain protective surfacing in use zones under and around all outdoor equipment of 18 inches or higher. When I first read that, I thought the protective surface had to be 18 inches or higher. It's worded really, really well in the registered family. And so maybe take a look at that for clarity. And then my second point on this was a curiosity around the size of protective surfacing, considering mulch and pea gravel for infants and toddlers. Just something for choking hazards.
I know that we don't specify which type of protective surfacing can be used for which age group, and that the pea gravel has been like could be a choking hazard, yes. And it is one thing I know that we are kind of doing research on in terms of the fiscal impact that would be for folks that do have pea gravel, and then having to limit that that type of protective surfacing from rural, or limit it to specific age groups.
Okay, and let's look at the RF part.
Mindy says hog fuel, and I'm like, yes, hog fuel is a very specific type of like, I don't even know how to describe it.
It's like shredded.
It's like shredded,
and it has some chemicals in it. You kind of know it when you see it. It's like, so it's,
yeah, I never heard of it. It has come up a couple times whether it is okay as protective surfacing or not, and we had to do some research and to look into the product itself. So that's why it's called out.
so let's look at the RF. So some of this is new to the RF rules, and I'll give you a minute to look at this part before I move the page up. Oh, well, actually, that's the whole section right there. Hey, Abby, did we have any questions about this or comments?
We do not, and I saw Carrie's cue.
I missed it, darn. Okay. Angela has a comment. Do you want to read that?
Angela says she's not familiar with the term rebounder. Is that familiar to you all? And a rebounder is a small trampoline. It may have like a bar that runs across the top. But we have gotten that question before, so it might be worth producing rule guidance on what a rebounder is.
Okay. Thank you for that question. Okay, we're going to now look at the hand washing section, and we'll start with CF. Okay, so for this topic of hand washing, it's worded the same for both CF and RF, so we'll just spend our time in here. The hand washing rules are the same as it was in the current rules. So it sounds like there's not a change here, but is this, oh, this is a change. So for children who are not able to wash their own hands, caregivers may wash children's hands with a single-use cloth rather than under running water. Abby, do we have any questions or hands raised?
Sarah's suggesting adding upon arrival to hand washing. And then Annalise has several comments on the rule previously around culturally diverse materials and activities. And she says that this is a great aspirational, but there are issues with this. One, with recently immigrated folks that may struggle with this and shouldn't be cited. These are those who are low-income providers may struggle to fully live up to this standard because it gets expensive fast. These standards must be learned from experience, and someone needs knowledge to do this and must be able to find and then pay for these items. The not reinforcing stereotypes can be particularly difficult depending on the eye of the beholder. I'm not casting any shade on anyone, but sometimes we don't go far enough, like Columbus Day, and sometimes we go too far. Cancel culture, sometimes it's about a lack of experience in other cultures. Sometimes it's a lack of knowledge. Sometimes it's about expense. And let's face it, the ability to store materials and, quite frankly, overwhelming quantities of materials, you can have too much stuff. Given the risk assessed rules coming, having this rule, sorry, it moved. While I agree with it, it's likely needed in some cases, also takes us down a rabbit hole. This is a broad rule and written and could literally be a gotcha. And who's to say it reinforces stereotypes? This becomes a discussion about that becomes very difficult to manage and to contain, can quickly get out of control, as we see all the time. Thank you, Annalise.
Thank you so much.
And Fernanda?
Yes, I just want to add to Annalise' comment that I think sometimes it's not about the materials that we have in class, but how we engage the families to participate and share their cultures if they feel comfortable doing that. So I don't know how we can maybe suggest that it's not about the materials and the real objects that we have. It's more about the participation and how we engage the families. So I don't know if that also can be rephrased and be included.
Thank you for all those comments. We have that captured, and that will be, that feedback will be looked at again. Okay. So this section is also the same in RF as it is in CF. So we'll just spend our time here. This topic is about about illness. And symptoms now align with OHA's symptom-based exclusion guidelines, and it aligns with all the other rule sets as well. So this doesn't look new, does it?
Technically, this section is new. All of these are new. They could all be highlighted. Sorry about that.
Okay.
And Sarah has her hand up.
I think I don't have much more comments after this one. Letter I says difficulty breathing or abnormal wheezing. I'm curious if that could be added without the use or something regarding an inhaler, because a child could just be wheezing or coughing and use their inhaler and then be okay, versus completely excluding them.
Thank you, Sarah, for that catch on that, looking at that.
Angie?
So with what Sarah said, I think that it's a really quick add instead of difficulty breathing or abnormal wheezing. It just should say abnormal breathing or abnormal wheezing. Because there's so many kiddos with allergies and asthma, and we all have plans for those written, but I think just adding that abnormal word makes it much easier to understand.
Thank you.
And I believe this is from Annalise, agrees with that, moving abnormal to the beginning. And Annalise also 100% agrees with Fernanda, and thanks her for sharing.
Thank you for sharing that. Okay. This is the end of that section. Here on E, I want to call out that CF and RF are the same as in as each other, except for in RF, the list of the allergens doesn't have to be shared because it's usually the RF provider is by themselves. So they're, it just made sense that they didn't have to share that. Okay. So Abby, I was thinking that it's 6:56 now and we just finished the illness section. We are almost halfway through this. And I thought this would be a good opportunity to take that 5-minute break.
Sure, sounds good.
Okay, everybody, it's 6. Thank you, Abby. Okay, we are now on injuries. I hope we have everybody back with us. Okay, so we're in the section of injuries, and this is also the same for CF as RF, so we'll go ahead and stay here. We have some new language here, and we have a fiscal here in the greens. So I'm going to keep it right here for a minute and let you read that. Scroll. Hey, Abby, do we have any questions or hands raised?
I do not see any.
So our next section is medication. And this is also the same for CF as RF. The wording is the same. And I'll leave it right here to let you get started on this. I'm going to move the page. Okay.
There's a comment in the chat that just says, I was uncertain from these rules if the educator can provide over-the-counter medicines that they purchase, or if parents always have to provide them.
Thank you for that question.
And I believe we addressed that, but it might not be.
It says here, parental authorization over the phone is permitted for those.
That's for they can. So if it's Sarah, if it's not clear, then we need to review this section to make sure that that is clear. They just have to have authorization from the family that they can give, and they and what it is, exactly what it is, be informed of what it is. So if it's not clear, we'll definitely read through these to make sure that that is clearly stated.
Sarah, thank you for bringing that up. Number 7 here, I want to call your attention to the application of sunscreen and diaper cream does not need to be documented, but a provider must. And in here, it's the standard rule, no longer required to document an application of diaper cream or sunscreen. This was based on feedback received from the field. Note sunscreen can also now be aerosol as long as the application follows the application directions, as long as the provider. Annalise?
I just want to mention that I had a child in care. They're still in care with me, but about a year ago, they had to use a prescription diaper cream, diaper ointment. So you might want to put application of sunscreen and non-prescription or over-the-counter diaper cream, because I think that makes things unclear. And I know it doesn't happen very often, but yeah.
Thank you for that. Those life experiences are coming in handy.
Ronnie, there are just a couple other things in the chat. And Angela says for diaper cream, oh, the same comment, non-prescription diaper cream. Mindy says, I also have parents supply sunscreen for their own child due to allergies, and I put their family name on it. Yeah.
Thank you. And we also just saw Carrie's signal up.
Ooh, and Annalise, you have your hand up. Is that okay? All right. Don't want to miss it.
Okay, this here is, this section is also the same as in RF and CF. So we'll stay here. And this is about the care of children with specific needs. And I'll bring this up so that you can see this section. And both a new section, updated terminology, as well as equity consideration. CCLD will have a template to support providers in creating a specific plan of care.
Why folks are reviewing this, I just want to connect this to some of the other feedback we received in earlier sections. So for example, in environmental modifications might mean, removing the child to a room if there is, if it's part of their plan, right? Or wearing a weighted vest if it's part of their plan. So that's where those really unique needs of children would be found. And Angie has her hand up.
I do. So on number 1, it says a list of the child's diagnoses or diagnoses. That's kind of getting into that HIPAA protected stuff. And I don't feel comfortable, honestly, asking my parents to be that specific. Now, I could see saying, that the child may have asthma and needing that information, but I really think that we need to look at that and make sure that we're not crossing some HIPAA.
Thank you, Angie. We have that noted.
And Annalise's comment, she has her hand up too, is when specific needs change the definition because there isn't, quote, required by children generally.
Can I also add something?
Sure. Yeah.
I'm trying to type here furiously. I'm not an attorney, but I think if an attorney was present, they would say that HIPAA does not apply to childcare providers at all. We're not subject to HIPAA. So yeah. So I respect Angie's comment, but I'm not a healthcare provider. I can't violate HIPAA. And the Department of Justice, through the Department of Early Learning and Care, when it was ELD, has made that comment many times. So just wanted to let you know.
Okay. Are there any more questions or comments, Abby, that we need to look at before we move on?
There are not. Oh. Most of what is out there is undiagnosed, a list of the child list of specific needs. That's from Annalise. Monica says that she agrees. I don't think that we childcare providers violate HIPAA. And I am not a expert in that area either, but we will take that we will make sure that we are not putting providers nor anyone else in violation of that, just to make sure.
Thank you. Okay, this time we're going to go on to food.
Oh, and
Annalise?
Annalise says, I'm trying to put stuff in the comments. Can you back scroll so I can capture the rules here?
Did I go too far back, or is that okay? Go down. Okay, I speak Annalise. And this is the end of the section. Annalise, did you also have a comment? Okay. Okay, Abby, are we ready to move on? Okay. Oh, I wasn't looking at Abby when I asked that question.
Sorry, Ronnie, yes.
It's okay. Okay, we are looking at food and food service. And there are some differences in RF, so we want to make sure that we take some time to look at that section too. So again, the black is everything that you've seen. Also, these little question marks, that's because it didn't take the degree symbol there. So it was 41 degrees or a reading of 0 degrees. Is that what that says, Abby? Yeah, for freezers. Okay. Okay. Gonna scroll, I think maybe to the end of the section. Let's see. Number 10. Abby, do you want to address those before I move on? The comments?
Sure. Sarah says 10. Oh, we're not to 10 yet. But that 10 reads to me that infants could be served water, milk, or juice. I know it's stated elsewhere that they can't, but to me personally, that's confusing. And I think this is in reference to what can be served.
We have
or liquids. I don't think we're there that. And then Annalise has feedback on the previous section that says, in addition to medications, accommodations, modifications, and therapeutic tools to be used on a schedule and on an as needed basis. So adding to.
Thank you. So
yes.
Number 4.
Therapeutic tools.
This question mark was supposed to be a half. It wouldn't take it in the PDF. I'm going to bring 7 up to the top.
Annalise suggests adding something in regards to unless children are sleeping for the 3.5 hours. And that I know those are in there later, but really might be in the wrong place or need to be there in both places. I'm not exactly sure. Annalise, I'm not which
Yeah, you
one
guys
were you
are going faster
referencing?
than I can type. So their modifications, accommodations are in there later.
Oh, okay.
Therapeutic tools are in there later. But number 3 and number 4 up there for the care of children with specific needs, there are some things that need to be done on a schedule that are not necessarily medications. And so restricting to medications administered on a scheduled basis or medications administered on an emergency basis, that needs to be broadened.
Thank you for clarifying. Thank you.
Okay, I'm going to scroll to, let's see, we were at 11. Okay, here's 12. Let me just make sure you get that. This at the top. So the allowance to opt out of milk service is based on both parent and provider feedback that CCLD received. And drinking water must be freely available to childcare children will be added to this section. Okay, I do want to show you the RF since it is a little bit different. I'm outside of the timeline. Thank you, Carrie. Okay. Let's see, do we know what section was different, Abby? Was it this?
There are less rules in the RF and less specifics. And that's mainly because there were very few rules about food and food service in RF. So we did not include everything that exists in certified family, but there are just more than what existed previously.
And then again, that comment about drinking water must be freely available to children. Abby, do you have comments before we move on? Or questions?
I think this is also just back on the care of children with specific needs. Also, the ADA, which is basically what this addresses, is very clear that these requirements under ADA are prompted by notice and knowledge of. If the parents aren't disclosing or engaging, then there is a huge problem for the provider because this can be enforced against the provider even if the parent is refusing to engage.
Okay. Abby, are we ready to move to the next section? Okay, transportation and field trips. And so we have an equity issue coming up here.
Fiscal, actually, green.
Oh, I'm sorry, fiscal piece. This is both a new rule and a fiscal consideration. Annalise?
So I just want to raise that in this day and age of human trafficking, your rule goes against some human trafficking advice. And may make children more of a target. I don't know how much the state of Oregon has researched this topic, and how current DELC is on this topic, but when children wear an easily identifiable item and when their name and their telephone number of the certified family child care are on there, it may make it easier for an abduction, and it may make it easier for an individual to move that child over state lines and avoid capture. So I just want to make it clear that if a child in your child care program was targeted and they were identified as not being with their parent because they were with a child care program, and maybe it would be easily known anyway by that individual or whatever. But anyway, like shirts, labels, wristbands can sometimes be problematic.
Thank you for those comments. I know Allison captured that. Allison, when I say that, you're not writing in the notes. Ronnie said Allison captured that, right? I was just wondering because Allison is very thorough.
Not that
So-
thorough.
Oh, okay, well, because I'm thinking maybe I need to stop giving her work. So it's, okay. Let's see what's, okay. And again, the black is currently in the rules. Let me see if I can get you walking full page.
Annalise has her hand up. Ronnie.
Elise?
Yeah, I just want to say about number 8. You know, and I understand why you might have this. One, I think this isn't very culturally sensitive. I understand that you have the word parent in there, and I get that, and that it's defined, right? But I would almost say that would be a provider may allow a non-staff or volunteer to transport children other than their own children without a qualified caregiver present only if the volunteer or non-staff meets assistant 2 qualifications and transportation requirements. I mean, I get that. And certainly people could do an exception, but I have like families in my childcare program where there are 3, like, for example, I have 3 children in care who are all related by blood and marriage, right? They're all cousins of one another because all the 3 sets of parents are related by blood or marriage. And so I get the point, but if this child if these kids are all family members, then, and it wouldn't be offensive to me, but cultural sensitivity would say that this rule, some families could have a real problem with this. Just calling that out.
Okay, thank you for that. Thank you. Carrie's signal went up. Let me scroll to the, oh, this here was the end of the section. Okay, since there are some differences in RF, we need to look at that. Abby, were there any comments that we needed to take care of? Also,
No, not on that
okay.
section.
Okay, great. So transportation and field trips. There were some differences here. Abby, do you know what they are? Hey, provider me.
I think just because since there are no other positions in registered family other than the provider or substitute provider, I think that one of the key differences is that it just says qualifications of the substitute provider. The rule is the same, but instead of saying assistant to, it says substitute provider.
Okay, thank you for that.
Mhm.
Are we good to move on?
I believe so.
So next, we're going to look at passenger restraints and vehicles. So this is not a big section, and this is the same as the RF, so we'll stay here. Okay, do we have any,
Angie has her hand up, Ronnie.
Angie?
Hi, guys. So on A, I completely 100% understand why it says 50 miles per hour. However, I live way out in the middle of the tule bushes. And at 50 miles an hour, I'm not even going the speed limit to get into a town where we could have our field trip. And I really think that we need to look at, I do understand not to exceed 50 miles an hour. We don't really want everybody going 60 or 70 miles an hour in our vehicles. But I think that we also need to be able to travel the rate of speed that is required on that road.
And Abby, is this restricted to the vans that are designed for 10 or more passengers, this speed limit?
Correct. And we actually looked into, because we heard this as well in some of our earlier engagement, and we looked at to see if we should remove this. And this is based off of some extensive research specific to that type of vehicle. And that's why it has not been
And I'm not
removed.
saying remove it.
Yeah.
I'm not saying to remove it, because I understand we don't, again, any vehicle shouldn't be traveling, you know, at a high rate of speed with our kids. But I think for those of us who do not live in town, I think we should be allowed to hit the 55 so that we can get to our field trips and still be in compliance. If I travel these roads where I live at 50 miles an hour, I will be getting into a traffic accident, because even at 55, nobody travels that, but at least I would be going the speed limit.
Okay, thank you for that. I know that Allison got those comments. Thank you. And the RF was the same. Oh, Annalise?
I just want to say, yeah, I mean, I agree with Angie on this. I think the research is pretty clear that there are specific conditions, which would be unlikely conditions for a childcare program. You're not going to be having overloaded vehicles. You're not going to be having all adult-sized people in the vehicle. You're not going to be exceeding the capacity, the weight limit, and unequal distribution, all of those things that factor into that. So the research is conclusive, but the research doesn't say that all vans tip. It just says under certain circumstances. So I think that, the research is sort of overused. And if you look at what federally they say, and we brought this up several times as our union, here's the thing, right? Travel speed may not exceed 50 miles per hour is not a good rule. One, it could be violating traffic laws, because you can be going under speed for wherever you're driving. Number two, this rule is not going to be effective for much longer, because you're going to have vehicles that are going to be too old and aren't going to be used anymore. So this rule at some point will phase out. And it's really not about the speed of the vehicle, because if the vehicle is going straight, like on a 4-lane highway, 50 miles per hour isn't the problem. The tipping problem comes when people try to take a curve too fast. So I think really that travel speed, it's not about 50 miles an hour. It's about watching your speed, being a more vigilant driver, understanding the vehicle and whatnot, because it's all about the axle and how fast your vehicle can corner, right? Or how well your vehicle can corner and stay on the road and not flip because it's top heavy. So I really think that there's room, there's something we could do right there, right? So that you can travel the 60 miles per hour. I think it's really maybe my off the cuff suggestion would be travel speed may not exceed 50 miles per hour. Maybe something like travel speed may not exceed posted speed limits and posted warnings for curves and whatnot, right? And should be at, maybe not more than 5 miles, or maybe not more than 5 miles, more, 5 miles under the speed limit, right? So if the speed limit is 65, you're going 60. If the speed limit is 55, you're going 50. Do you see what I mean there?
Okay, thank you. Yes, we have those.
Something, I'm sure there's some better language there.
Okay, thank you. We'll look at that for sure. And since the language was the same for the RF, we will not go there. And now we have 1, 2, 3. We have 5 more sections to go through, and I need to make sure that we leave time for Abby to talk to you about reimbursement. And if we do run out of time, you can always add comments into the link that Carol had put in the email, but we want to try to get your comments while we're here. Okay, so we're going to look at this next section here, that this here is also the same. This is swimming and water activities, and I'll bring this up for you here. I'm going to move it to the top of the page. Oh, there we are. Abby, do we have any questions or hands raised to that we want to address?
No, I'll just add that the rules are now, yes, the same between the two. There's significantly less rules now for certified family. We've condensed them, but there were no rules about swimming in RF, and there are now. So they are all new to registered family.
Okay. And this next section is on animals, and there are some differences in the RF, and we'll make sure that we look at the RF as well too. So I'm gonna put this there for you to read. Again, the black is not new to you, the yellow is. That's the end of it.
I think, Ronnie, the difference between RF and CF is just number 8. So if you just wanted to.
Number 8 is not in registered family, and number 8 is a provider must have and follow written procedures for the care and maintenance of the animals.
And Mindy, there's a question for you in the chat. We just want to make sure we are reflecting, accurately reflecting your comment. And I think it is about traveling speed, but I want to make sure.
Thank you, Mindy. That's great. Thank you, Allison, for asking.
Angie has her hand up.
So I do on number 9, where it says the litter boxes. It's on the
Oh.
Sorry, go back. Keep going on animals.
Number 9
on animals. Yeah,
Oh, okay.
where it says litter boxes are not able to be in areas accessible to children. If we have them gated so that children don't have access, would that be sufficient? And if so, can we have that somehow worded in that we could have it gated off like we do our fireplaces so that it's not accessible?
Okay, thank you. We have that. Allison, you have that. Okay. Okay.
It could actually probably just say inaccessible to children, and then a baby gate is what is under the definition of inaccessible. So we could definitely look at
Thank you, Angie.
updating that language. Sarah says, back to swimming, is there a depth maximum and minimum for water tables or water play being small, dog pools, etc.? If not, possibly add one to deter drowning. There is not currently one in rule now. And having a gate makes it inaccessible. Yes, inaccessible to children reflects hazards. Yeah.
It's great. Thank you. So now we're on to night care, and the night care rules are the same in RF as they are in CF. And I'm going to just bring this up so you can see this. So this section is not new. Is that correct, Abby?
It's not new for certified family. It is, however, new for registered family. So similar to swimming, there were very few, I believe two rules in RF for night care, and now the rules are the same between certified family and registered family for night care. And as a reminder, night care is care between 9 p.m. and is it 6 a.m., 5 a.m.? I have to double check.
Okay, and so the wording is the same for the RF as well. Okay, our last two sections. We are going to sanitate, sanctions, suspension, denial, and revocation. Those aren't fun places to go. Okay, so we will look, there are differences, Abby? I'm not sure.
I'm not sure if there we might want to go over both just in case.
Okay, I have a note here on number 5 that this specific rule is still under guidance with DOJ. So just to let you know that. But this isn't new, is that right, Abby? These are existing rules?
Yes, I believe so.
So, and then with the RF, it sounded like, oh, nope, I need to. No, I'm sorry. I left you behind back there at passenger restraints, animals, night care. Okay, here we go. It looks like everything is the same. Yeah, and it's the same as it is now. Okay, great. Abby, do we have any hands raised or questions in a comment that you want to review?
I don't see any, no.
Okay. So then we're going to go to this last section of civil penalty. And I think these here are the same except for the civil penalty amount is different in RF, if I remember right. Is that correct? Okay. So this here's the entire rules section. And then I'll take you to the RF and you can see the difference in the dollar amount there. What was the only difference between the two sets? Okay, Abby, any questions or comments that we want to talk about?
I do not see anything in the chat.
Okay,
Boy, we're early.
guess what? We finished. So remember that link in your email that gives you the ability to still make comments, to have questions or what have you. You can still use that. So at 3 a.m, when you realize, I forgot this. Oh, now this makes sense, whatever. You can always go back to add that. Abby, I believe that's closing this Friday.
Yes. So, and I will, just a second, I just want to say that Annalise has a comment just to point out that the letters or the notice on these issues is non-compliant with Chapter 183. Okay. Oh, so closing, and Allison wants to know, is that for a civil penalty, Annalise?
So and we brought this up as a union multiple times. Since the change that went into effect in January 1st of 2024, all the notices that go out for civil penalties, suspensions, conditions, revocations, denials, CBRs, DELC, all of that, licensing, those actually all should reflect the change in language from chapter 183. So not that I got a problem with the rules, but there is, in order to be compliant with chapter 183, the boilerplate at the end of those letters really does need to be updated.
I see. So the process, not the rule, right?
Yeah, the process. Yeah, it's not comment on the
Okay.
rule necessarily, although I was trying to see if there was a place in this rule. My hope is that when you publish these rules, that you're going to publish the CBR rules, these rules, and the all facilities rules, the 414, 75s, 30, 0300s,
Mhm.
because those there is language in 414, 075, 0300, all facilities, that does address this language here in the 414, what is it, 206 and 360 now. So I mean, that's my comment, right? Is that you're fixing the rule, but please fix what you do with these rules, because when you enforce them, yeah.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you for pointing that out. Okay, so before Abby takes over, hey, Carrie, can you throw up your signal again, because we need to celebrate. We're at the end. Okay. I appreciate that.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. So, okay, so we're going to let Abby go ahead and talk about the reimbursement piece, and you want to make sure that you are aware of the next steps for that, because you worked very hard, and we really appreciate that you stayed engaged and that you were still giving us really good information throughout. It's just been a privilege to work with you this evening. I really appreciate this. I know we all do. But go ahead, Abby.
And thank you, Ronnie, for stepping in for Carol tonight. We really appreciate that as well. And I will just reiterate what Ronnie said. Thank you so much to everyone who's on this call, our community partners, our providers, family members of children in care. Your input and feedback is so valuable to us as we work our way through this. As Ronnie mentioned, the Smart Sheet feedback form will be available to you until Friday. After Friday, any comments that you have can go through the public comment period. And I believe Carol shared those slides, but there'll also be information about that in our closing email to you. So if you have additional feedback beyond this Friday that you'd like to give, that can go through the channels of public comment. And public comment is open until the end of this month. So it will close on October 31st. And as a reminder, these rules, after in their finalized form, will go to the Early Learning Council for vote and potential adoption at the December council meeting. Those meetings are live streamed, so you can watch that via our YouTube channel. And then you can also, yes. So, and there will be a public hearing for one for registered family and one for certified family. So if you would like to make verbal comments, those are next week. I believe Monday and Tuesday. Again, the dates and times and information will be in our last follow-up email. And then in addition, we will be emailing you. It probably won't come from Carol. It'll probably come from Fabi. All the directions for reimbursement. And I just will apologize in advance for the complicated steps for reimbursement. Unfortunately, there's kind of no way to get around it right now because those requirements come from the Department of Administrative Services in the state of Oregon. So again, I apologize for the complex directions on getting reimbursement completed. But please feel to reach out if you have any questions. Also in that email will be a survey about the rack itself. So this is a new step that DELC is taking to really kind of gauge our community feedback and the forums that we have for community feedback. So we would really like to hear from you and your experiences being a participant on this rack in particular. So yes, give Ronnie 5 stars. That's what we're asking for. No, but please feel free if you would like to provide us with some feedback on what we can do better and what you have enjoyed through this process. Please take a moment to complete that survey as well. And beyond that, I think that's it. And again, just thank you so much for spending your time with us. Your time is very valuable, and we appreciate that you chose to spend it providing feedback. So thank you so much.
Okay, have a good evening, everybody. Are there any final questions before we sign off? Okay, look for that next email.